It's time to cook with Susan Beck. Well, today I'm going to make sweet potato casserole for you. This is just a great accompaniment to a holiday dinner, and I'm making mine to take home to my parents to go with the ham that they are going to cook for Christmas dinner. I'm making it ahead of time because this is a great meal accompaniment that can be frozen, a great side dish that you can make ahead and throw into the freezer. So our sweet potato casserole is going to use 3 to 4 large sweet potatoes. I would call this a large sweet potato. I grew this in my garden, so mine all look a little bit funky. I've got this crazy long one. This one's a little more normal, but on the small size. So I've just been cutting up a bunch of them here. And to do it, I just simply use my potato peeler and slice off the skins. This one here, like I said, it's got this funky little shape to it, so it's going to maybe take a little cutting it apart to be able to get all the skin off of those. But that's how you go about it. Peel, peel, peel until you get rid of all of the outside layer. I find the sweet potato casserole is a great one to use these crazy looking sweet potatoes from my garden for, because these aren't so great for serving like you might serve a baked potato. You know, where you just slice it open on your plate and add a little cinnamon and butter, and my husband likes to add the brown sugar. We'll have a brown sugar coating on the top of this today. All right, just about got that great big one done. Okay, we got a few spots we'll cut out of that in a minute. This nice long one here. So when you grow them in your garden, you don't just get those nice oval shaped sweet potatoes that you find in your grocery store. You get some odd looking ones like this. In fact, I was just watching something on the news about some vegetable growers that do like the CSA boxes where you do those community sharing programs and you get different vegetables delivered to your house each week, or you pick them up each week. And they were saying that they are starting to try to market them for people who are willing to take the vegetables that don't look perfect like the ones you have in the grocery store. And I think that's a great idea, because I just know from growing in my garden, you know, sometimes a green pepper gets an extra little bump on it or whatever, but you know, it still tastes the same. All right, so those last sweet potatoes I have now peeled up, and we're gonna just cut off some of the bad ends and get rid of any last peel that I couldn't get to just because of the little crease in there. All right, the next step is to cut these up into just little chunks. They'll cook faster if we chunk them rather than leaving them in big pieces. So I'm just gonna cut them down and put them into a pot of water that we will be boiling them in. Now these truly are sweet potatoes. We buy sweet potato plants in the spring and plant them. They have a long growing season, so we don't grow them until, we don't stop growing them. We don't dig them up until around the time of the first frost. So like in October, we would dig these, and we're at the end of this year's crop, so we'll use these up for Christmas this year. But they do need a long growing season. They can't really go in the ground though until the risk of frost is gone in the spring as well. So we're kind of pushing the limit here in Wisconsin, getting our sweet potatoes to grow. They grow underground just like regular potatoes, so it's always kind of fun to go out and dig and see what you have to harvest. Then you leave them sit for a few weeks to kind of, I don't know, I guess it makes the skin get a little tougher and so forth. And then we just put ours in a box and store them in the basement where we have like a cool, dry, consistent, you know, around 50-degree temperature. All right, so finish chunking these all up and put them on to boil. All of my sweet potatoes are chunked. You can use yams instead. Another thing I should mention is that it is okay to buy canned sweet potatoes and make this as well. You just won't need to peel them or boil them. They'll be ready for the next step of mashing. So what else do we need? Well, we need a 1/4 cup of butter, 1 egg, 1½ teaspoons of vanilla, and a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. these ingredients will be added to our mashed sweet potatoes or yams. And then we will be putting on a topping. We will use a 1/3 cup of pecans, a 1/3 cup of brown sugar. We will use a 1/6 of a cup of flour and 3 tablespoons of butter to make a little praline topping. Well, now that my potatoes have come to a boil, they're going to cook in this boiling water for probably another 20 minutes. It takes about 20 minutes to get them to a boil, and another 20 until they become tender enough that when I stick a fork into one of the little cubes, it goes through easily. We want these to mash well, and the more tender the sweet potatoes are, the easier that will be. I'm going to leave my lid off now as I let them continue to boil, then I don't have to worry about this boiling over. Let's see how these sweet potatoes are coming along. I'm just going to stick my fork in. Oh, it stabbed that really easily, and that was even a big piece. There's another one. My fork went right through it. So we are ready to drain our sweet potatoes. Pour off the water, and we'll be left with our bright orange sweet potatoes. To mash these, I like to use a potato masher first, and then use a hand mixer. This way I can break them up pretty well, just by pressing on them. But I like to make them a little smoother by using my hand mixer to finish them off. Now as I get ready to use my hand mixer, I'm going to go ahead and add my softened butter to this. These are warm enough. They're still steaming here, but that butter is going to melt in, softened or not. It's not completely combined, but it'll be good for the moment because we're going to add our other ingredients in as well. Now, I like to get this kind of started and cooling off a little bit, because one of our fears when making sweet potato casserole is that we'll actually cook our egg when we end up mixing it in there. And we really don't want these little fried egg pieces in our sweet potato casserole. So one thing to help with that is to cool down the sweet potatoes a bit. Another is to mix your other ingredients together so that the egg isn't going in just as a, like it might with a fried egg. So there's my 1/3 cup of vanilla mixed in with 1 egg, and this is a 3/4 teaspoon. Oh, I have a new vanilla here today. Let me get that opened up. And then I have 3/4 of a teaspoon here, and I want 1 1/2 teaspoons, so 3/4 plus 3/4 makes 1 1/2. And if I just go ahead and mix that together a bit, having that egg mixed in with the other ingredients when it goes into our warmer sweet potatoes should prevent it from frying. All right, that's well mixed. Let's add it to the sweet potatoes. All right, let's add that egg and sugar and vanilla. Use a spatula here to get the rest of it out. Looks like I need to fix my beaters too there. I must have pressed the button and lost one. And we're ready to mix. Next step is to put it into our casserole dish. And as I mentioned, this freezes very well, so it's easy to make it ahead of time, especially during the holidays when it can get really busy trying to get the whole meal done. Put it together some weekend before and put it into your freezer. All right, on to the top of that will go our Praline Crunch. I have a few nuts here, and I don't want them really chopped up greatly, but I do want them a little smaller than whole pecans. So just lightly chop those, and let's find a bowl to mix in. We'll put in our 1/3 cup of pecans and our 1/6 cup of flour, and our 1/3 cup of brown sugar, and 3 tablespoons of butter. Now this I just want to make into a bit of a crumble. So I'm just going to mash that all together. Again, my butter is just softened, not melted, which helps to make it a crumble, kind of like you might put on top of an apple or peach crisp. And then we'll sprinkle that on top of the casserole. Well, I topped a little one here so we can taste it yet today, since this one is for Christmas at my parents'. This 8x8 pan is nice and thick with the sweet potatoes, so you really can probably serve 9 people quite easily, and we're not having a huge Christmas. Double the recipe if you want more. And there is all that crumble topping, and it's not a ton of crumble topping, but it's enough to give it a little bit of crunch with the pecans and a little bit more sweetness. But the sweet potatoes are already so sweet, you don't really need to overdo it, and that's something I like about this recipe. To freeze the sweet potato casserole, I like to cover it first with some plastic wrap, nice and tight over that, since I don't have a lid for this container, followed by a little aluminum foil. Just remember that when you go to put this in the oven, you would not want that plastic wrap left on there, so be sure to take that off. This would cook at 350 degrees for 30 minutes if I was ready to put it into the oven right now. When I get ready to use it out of the freezer, I'm going to make sure it's completely thawed, and then that 30 minutes should be sufficient. This small little one that we're going to taste in a minute probably won't take 30 minutes because it's already a little on the warm side and it's a small container, but I don't want to wait to Christmas to sample this. There's our baked sweet potato casserole. You can just see how that butter and sugar has melted and just given it a nice little glaze, and then we've got that crunch we're going to get from the pecans. Pecans just go so well with sweet potatoes, and you get the salty ham that we're going to serve this with, and the sweetness of this is just a great pairing. Everyone should try sweet potato casserole for their holiday dinner.